I thought this bungalow-sized cottage with this wonderful planting of flowering lavender in front of it was a great subject for a quick 10-minute daily drawing. The main part, of course, is going to be this house, and getting these perspective angles correct. I thought it was a bit of a challenge. It looks simple, but the angles actually slope up and down towards each other quite dramatically. And these horizontal lines, pale lines in the brickwork, certainly add an extra dimension of challenge to keep all the angles accurate enough so that they look correct, so that they end up not being too wide or too narrow. And then it's also placing the elements as the lines go along so that they look right against each other, that one or the other don't look too large, too wide, too tall in relation to what else is there. Plus we've got this sort of shallow arched surround over the main window. So at the start, I'm trying to find my way. As I often say, at the start of a drawing, we need to go particularly slowly, not for slowness' sake, but we need to do a lot more observation. And in my technique of drawing freehand in ink, where I can't erase anything, then it's important that I get angles and lengths as right as I can, as accurately as I can. And so I often end up looking at the reference, putting a dot where I think an angle is going to be, and then I check what angle I've created to that dot with my pen, and then compare it with the same angle on the reference to see if it is the same or if it's shallow or steeper than the angle I want to draw. And sometimes I'll redo the dot and check that again. Sometimes I'll just reposition the line above or below the dot when I draw it. It just depends how important the line is and how confident I am that I have an accurate version place to put it. And I just realised why I couldn't get that front window to look quite right, because for some reason I've, in that lower half where we just have 2 panes of glass, I've managed to split each of them into half using the lines that I did above in that upper arch section as a prompt, even though it's not what happens in our reference. And this is where we can lose concentration for a moment and our observation suffers. So we see something, but by the time we put the pen on the paper, either we haven't seen in enough detail, or we've simply forgotten what we've seen, and now we, if you like, make it up based on other similar windows that we've seen and or drawn. So this is where, if we want something to be recognizable to what it is, we need to capture these sorts of details. It obviously doesn't matter to the finished drawing in this case, because it's a house and no one looking at this is going to think, oh, I know that house. Oh, he hasn't got the front windows right. But if we were drawing something more well-known, it could well have the sense of making it look somehow awkward to what we expect. So I've probably spent way too much time on this window, even though clearly it was going to be a fairly significant part of what we're doing. And the angle of that horizontal line in the second lower half of the window, the perspective angle that creates isn't quite right. It should pitch down slightly more as it goes from left to right. It's the perennial struggle I have when I do these voiceovers, that now I watch myself draw and it's a lot smaller through the camera, and that means that I can see it all more easily. And that includes I can see anything that's not quite right when it comes to perspective angles more easily. So sorry about that visual jump then. I had to go out for a little bit and take the camera with me, take the phone with me. So we're back, having had a bit of a break. And now I'm going to start with this gable roof. So I'm working out exactly where it goes. Again, this is the sort of angle of architecture, this sort of architecture that we need to pay attention, because the corners aren't on the corner of the building. If we look to see where the roof angle part comes down onto the eaves, it's way over on the right hand side, and it's not necessarily going to be on the corner of the left hand side either. So I put a dot, I work out where that uppermost point is also in my photo, aligning it on the reference to architecturally what's below, and I find that point on my drawing, put a dot, but I check the angle from where I think the line's going to end on both ends of the gable, and I look to see if that dot becomes my apex, are the angles formed the same? Checking the angles with the pen is not just for perspective angles, it's for any angle for any reason. So a little bit of timber decoration there. And then we have some decorative elements molded into the plasterwork, the exterior plasterwork. I dare say reflecting some sort of Tudor exposed timber finish that's now been tidied up and stylized and created in the plasterwork. And just a few hints of the way the edge of the tiling looks. So now I'm working on some indication of this side, and then I have the veranda on the other side, and I think I mostly get this all done within the 10 minutes, and then we'll switch to double time when I do the trees at the back and the lavender and the gateway in the front. But if you want, you can still keep drawing at real-time speed. You don't need to draw in double time speed. I would say, I know many of you draw along with this, and look, in the end, whatever works for you is what works for you. But my recommendation as a teacher and from a learning point of view is not to, because just with all that there is to do, drawing along with someone, I find it very hard to believe that most people would be able to draw along with me and still be able to look at the reference enough to be actually drawing from the reference, not drawing from my marks on the paper. And the really important thing that we all have to learn when we draw is to work out what marks do I need to put on the paper to create the effect of what's happening. And I reckon that's 80 to 90% of the drawing. It doesn't take 80 to 90% of the time, and that's why I think it's so deceptive. But in terms of how it looks at the end, the overwhelming bulk of the contribution to how it looks at the end is the thinking and the observation, and then more thinking and processing and coming up both with a way of creating the effect of what we see and a strategy for how that can be then put on the paper over the time that we have to draw in. Now, if you're following along with me, it's going to be very tempting just to look at my pen and to look at my line work and to copy it, and not to have to think to yourself, now where would I start? Why would I start there? How would I do this? How will I do that? Because these are the things that we need to have practice at, particularly if we're doing a daily drawing exercise. Part of I would say the biggest part, the biggest benefit of doing these is the repeated practice that looking at a photo reference and working out what marks will create this. Now, I think it's very helpful to watch my demo before you do it. But my recommendation, as I said, from a teaching point of view, is that you watch me draw and you look to see what I do and you try and work out, even beyond what I say, what I'm thinking or my strategy or how I do things. Look at the marks I create. Consider, are they effective? You might decide some of my marks are not effective at creating effect, in which case you can work out what marks you'll try. After I finish the drawing, again, pay attention to anything that you think is particularly useful or not, but then don't look at my drawing. I suggest that you get a screenshot of the photo reference and then you look at that while you draw. By all means, anything you can remember from what I've done, use if it's helpful to use, because in doing it that way, you're going to be incorporating what I've done into your thinking, because you're still choosing what you will or won't use, and then you're working out how that will integrate in what you're going to do yourself anyway. Now, that's the way we use the work of others. That's the way we use the work of artists whose style has inspired us, whose style we would like our drawings to look a bit like. Not by copying their drawings, not by copying them or drawing along with them, but by understanding how they do things that we have in our mind when we go to draw ourselves. So we're into double time now. We're getting this lavender profusion done. I decided to go very light on with the lavender. I'm really just going to be indicating there's some sort of flowering profusion here. I'm not going to try and make it obviously look like lavender. I mean, I hope some people can recognize it as such. But this is a 10-minute daily drawing exercise. Although, quite frankly, to use this for a second exercise and to, instead of bothering about the house, really work on the garden up against the house and the lavender and the gate and the picket fence as well. That would be, I think, very useful, because this is a great subject to work out how can I create the effect of detail. Maybe I'll even do another video just on that myself, because it does sound like a good sort of idea for a video. So again, trying to just put some marks that create the effect of the lavender without trying to draw the lavender. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, please, whether you think you could tell this was lavender or not. I'd love to hear. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Look, I hope you found this interesting. Again, please hit the like button. If you did, that helps me out. And why not have a go? The reference photo on my channel community page is waiting for you. But look, whatever you draw, however you draw it, and for whatever reason, make sure you have fun. Then you're going to win every time. I'll see you next time. Bye.